All right, this is Sky Juice coming to you live and direct from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. I am back home. I was in New York for a week, and I'm so excited to be back home because it was so freezing cold. I couldn't take it, and I did have a good time, and saw my children, all of them, and now I'm back to continue my journey here. And I see we have Van,
Hey, hey guys.
man. So basically, the conversation I wanted to have was, um, so it's interesting how wellness.
Hold on.
I need to mute Van. Van muted himself. Okay. It's interesting how we have shifted wellness into a you have to be rich in order to be healthy world. That's the world we live in now. In order to be healthy, you need to have a lot of money because organic food is more expensive and higher quality cut of, well, meat. I'm not a meat eater, but just for example, leaner cuts, et cetera, are all for that more money having folks. But back in the day, and I'm going to say probably at least 60 years ago, um, poor people were healthier because they had to rely on fruits and veggies and bean soup and rice and potatoes. And even meat was like, even though they ate meat, it was like sparse. So I'm here congested like ridiculous because I think my friend back in New York, she was sick for like a couple days, and I was taking all kind of herbs and stuff not to get sick, but I think I ended up getting sick. So it's like right now it's like mega congestion. But anyway, it's funny how like we've gotten away from being healthy. Like in order to be healthy, you have to be rich, and I attribute that to the fact that farming changed from back 60 years ago. Most farmers were small family farms, and over the last 60 years, the whole country has transformed into a like multi huge conglomeration corporation farm. And so, not to mention that these huge farming businesses get so much kickbacks from the U.S. government for their soy and their wheat and their rice and their, what's that other crop? We have soy, wheat, rice. There's a fourth one. Corn. Thank you. um, and they get kickbacks. So the food that is made from these four main items are super dirt cheap, and they're highly processed. Corn is in everything. There's a good documentary online called King Corn, and corn is in absolutely every processed food you can eat. Everything. And it's not only a sweetener, but it's a filler, it's a nutrient, it's a this, that, it's an oil. I mean, it is in everything. And so I think so poor people went from eating whole foods, whole grown, cheap fruits and vegetables and beans and grains and little meat to eating cheaper, highly processed non-food food items that are being grown in mass production, sprayed heavily, and that's why poorer people are less healthier um, than people who have money. People who have money tend to have more education and are just more aware. They're more exposed to organics, healthy eating, whole food eating, better restaurants, better quality, more educated people. You get more exposure to a better quality of life depending on your economic bracket. And you know, I that probably can be argued, but the fact of the matter is, if you ever in the hood, you just look at what restaurants are there, and they're usually I tell my children the restaurants with the bulletproof glass because usually in the hood it's some like Chinese food, and not even good quality Chinese food, because I do love Chinese food, but like this bulletproof Chinese food, bulletproof fried chicken and French fries that will never ever ever um decompose. Like very, high fat, high heat, acidic foods that are sold in the hood. You go into, as soon as you change the community that you go in, the types of cafes and food eateries change. One of my biggest tests that I can tell what kind of a community I'm in is the lettuce test. In Baltimore, when I was living there, I knew what type of community I was in, the level of poverty based on what the grocery store sold. Now, the interesting thing about Baltimore is a lot of the buildings look the same, maybe outside, but inside, of course, depends on who you are, what you have, where you have a granite counter or no counter. Um, and then the grocery stores might even be the same name, but they might not sell the same thing depending on your community. So the lettuce test was, I walk into a grocery store, I go see what lettuce they're selling. Now, I remember going to one area, they barely had like 5 heads of iceberg lettuce, which is your dirt cheapest lettuce you're gonna have. And the ones that they did have were brown and yucky looking and wrapped all tight and stuff like that, instead of being open and fluffy, etc. I went into another grocery store in a different area, and they had iceberg, romaine, and maybe another green leaf lettuce. So you were elevating the community that you were in because they gave you a little bit of choice on the lettuce, right? Then you go into like an upper class community. Their lettuce section is ridiculous. They have, I don't even think they had iceberg, okay? Not only do they have romaine, green leaf, red leaf, radicchio, arugula, spinach. I mean, they had so many different selections, stuff you never heard of. And it just goes to show you, like, that's my test. I made that one up. I always look for communities and their lettucing. Now don't get me wrong. I'll even buy iceberg. A lot of people feel like iceberg is beneath them, but iceberg lettuce is still a good lettuce over not eating any greens at all. So I'm gonna open it up. I love for you guys to share your thoughts on poverty and wellness. I mean, I'm not sure what an answer. Oh, actually, I do have an answer for it, but I'm not sure what you guys are thinking about that. But let me know what your thoughts are. Any of you? Claire, Van?
Yeah, I was just, man, I was just gonna say, yeah, it definitely depends on the region. Sometimes where you go, what prices there are, what's available. Um, yeah, and yeah, it's a big factor even here in Australia. Like you just go to one suburb and you get like different cheeses, you get different lettuce, you get different everything, and then you go to the other suburb and they haven't got much, and sometimes the quality of the food isn't that great. What are you doing, man? Hang on.
Yeah, I could make out most of what you were saying. Where I'm working is very loud, but I think I got the gist of what you were talking about as far as poverty and wellness. Um, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out that poverty and diseases and poor foods, there's a correlation between all of it. You going down? Okay, I got to carry you guys with me. Hopefully, I don't lose you. It's just like in the poor communities in Detroit, um, where the household average salary is, I forgot, it's some minuscule number. It's a depreciation to a degree, and the foods that they're buying are like the like say when you go into McDonald's and they have the value meals for $1, and they're buying Debbie's cakes and they're buying all foods like that, and these foods have a direct connection with every disease known to man and beyond. I mean, especially like diabetes, high blood pressure, on and on and on. And it's a definitely when you were talking about. I think you were saying when back in the day, something about the food quality was better for the rich. Um, Yeah, back in the day when the rich used to, meat wasn't always like a widespread thing. It used to only be for the rich, and at that point, even though meat has now been discovered to be, maybe you don't want to eat too much meat, but back then that was like a luxurious thing. Not that it isn't now, but back then it was really like, it was really like for the rich, to have like rich foods, meats, and stuff like that. Ready? So, it just, it like nothing ever really changed. It's just that we're in a different age. We're in a whole different age. Where back then it was right before the industrial age is when all this was happened. And then I don't know. I better get my facts straight, but it's definitely a link. It's a link, and it's a great topic to really talk about. Yeah, this is way. This is nothing new. There's a link to all of this, and when it comes down to eating right, if you say like wellness stuff like that, you don't have money to buy all to put money away and not waste on unnecessary food items, and to break the chains of certain foods that maybe we shouldn't be so controlled by. So, I
Hands breaking
didn't
up. I guess
pick up a lot of what you were saying, but what I did pick up, I hope I answered. I tried to answer the best that I could, but I missed a whole lot of it. So,
mute yourself for a minute because you're in a bad area. Um, no, what I was saying is not the rich ate better back in the day. The poor ate better back in the day. That's what I said. Because they had more access to whole foods. Whole foods were cheaper then. All those corn and potatoes and rice, all those things were just cheap food and they were in abundance. And that's what poor people ate. They ate a lot of greens, a lot of veggies, because they were close to the farms. Farms were in communities, and that's why poorer peoples ate well. I believe that the solution to this is going right back to that kind of farming again. I think that every community, neighborhood, area should be growing food in abundance, and that would reduce how much food costs and make it easier for people of whatever financial bracket to get the food that they need. I also think that there is when I was in Baltimore, also, they had uh, people who got food stamps were able to go to the farmers market and trade in their food stamps or get coupons or like chips or something that they did so that they can buy things at the farmers market. And that was really a good idea. because it doesn't make sense for folks who get food stamps to use that money to get processed foods and liquor and all kinds of things. I don't necessarily think that the abundance of meat eating has led to the health concerns of today more so than the growth of eating a large amount of processed food. I think eating the processed food has more directly affected our health than meat consumption. That's what I'm thinking. So, but yeah, I think that folks who want to turn that cycle around need to get into farming programs, community gardening, what have you. Do you have programs like that in your neighborhood that you are aware of? Do you grow things in your homes? Do you have little pots on your windowsill where you're growing herbs or tomatoes or what have you? Claire or Van?
Oh, sorry, that was a question, was it, Sky? Sorry, that was a question, was it, Sky? Are we growing stuff at home? I thought you were just talking generally.
Okay, so answer the question.
Yeah, I'm not growing anything at the moment, but there's areas around here that you can grow, and there's growers markets and stuff like that. I like to go down to the growers market and get my food when I can. It's every Sunday, and a lot of the farmers go down there and they bring their produce, and yeah, it's a pretty good deal. You can get quite a lot for a good amount, so that's what I do.
I don't know if Van could hear us, but but yeah, so that's pretty much some of the conversation that I wanted to have today. I do think that depending on where you live, you can get just an abundance of fresh fruits and veggies. Like when I was in New York, I went to a farmer's market, and a farmer's market is based on food that is grown within that region, like within 200 miles or 100 miles, something like that. And so, of course, it's middle of winter or ending of winter, I guess. And what they were selling to me wasn't exactly enough to survive on. Of course, they have cheese and dairy products and yogurt. They had a lot of apples. There was a lot of apples that were coming. They had a huge apple stand, and then of course they had a few vendors that were doing like prepared foods like pies and breads and different vegetarian dishes and stuff like that. But in terms of what was growing, I didn't see like people selling greens and broccoli and other veggies that to me would have been really nice to buy. And so, we live in this world where, I mean, for the entire world to eat bananas all year round, when bananas only grow in tropical zones of the world, is amazing. Bananas grow everywhere. Bananas don't grow barely in most of the world, but you can get bananas everywhere, and it just kind of like shows you how it's almost messed up. It's good, but then it's messed up, because really we're not supposed to. If you live in a northern city or country, Australia, do they grow bananas down there?
Yeah, they do, like in Queensland and stuff on the East Coast.
Is that warmer? Is that more
Yeah,
tropical?
it's a tropical climate, yeah.
Right. So at least that's in the same country, and transporting food around your country is not as difficult as putting stuff on a ship and shipping it, thousands of miles. But I'm thinking that we really should be eating according to where we live. And I was thinking to myself, boy, if I had to live in New York and only eat what I found at the farmer's market, then I would only be eating bread, cheese, meat, and apples and yogurt. And I was like, that wouldn't be too delicious for me, especially during the season. So, Van, what's going on? You sound quiet. Are you busy at work? You might be.
No, I was waiting. I couldn't pick up all of it. I can't really can't really hear everything that was said. Just bits and pieces. I think if I know I'm never in planting and carrots or whatever. I'm interested in doing a lot more of that than I've ever been in the past.
Probably you could be
Because
hearing
of
over
that I'm
here.
interested in more. Um, I think I heard you market and, and it being limited. Maybe so, but it kind of beats supporting anything else. You know what I mean? I don't know the answers. I'm just kind of, like I said, I didn't hear a lot of what you were saying, so I'd have to review the tape later because where I'm at is very, very loud, and I'm barely able to make out what's being talked about. But yeah, sorry, I'm gonna mute again, you guys. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, what I was saying, Van, was you probably are not hearing well because not only is it loud where you are, but I don't think your connection is really, really that good because you're coming in and out. But nonetheless, um, I had a great time in New York. I learned a lot about the city. I know that I don't belong there on a long-term basis because, not to mention, not only talk about food and poverty and wellness and what grows, but just the hustle and bustle of the city is something I'm not interested in. And me and my children were sitting, waiting for the right train to come by, and the train that was sitting there was full of people. And all the people in the train, they didn't look up, they didn't look around, they didn't talk to one another. They just completely, everyone was in their own zone, zoned out, bonked out, zombied out, and there was no energy between people. Every time I got into an elevator or walked somewhere or saw somebody new, I always greeted them. And New Yorkers are not used to that. They look at you strange. I was like, "Oh, hi, good morning. How are you?" And my son was laughing at me because he said, you kind of are different when you do that. No one really does that. They don't say hi to people. And I was like, why not? It's another human being. And he said he's going to try doing that, and because it just feels right. And just talking to people and being human is what I think New York is lacking. And I think there's so many walls and barriers up. Another thing I did notice about New York this time, more so than I've ever noticed before, is New York is really a real city of foreigners. I mean, if I were to count, I couldn't possibly count, but if I were to take like a general survey of all the people I saw while I was in New York, I literally, I think everybody I saw was not from New York. I don't think I met or saw native New Yorkers. And guess what? I'm a native New Yorker. I was born in New York. My mother was born in New York. My grandmother wasn't born in New York. She was born in the Virgin Islands. But at least me and my mom, we were born in New York. My siblings were born in New York. My cousins are born in New York. So I have a huge New York, um, situation. But I saw so many people who were like a lot of Africans, lots and lots of Africans, of course, a lot of Caribbean people, a lot of Latinos, like from South America, Mexico, um, all the other Latin American countries, um, Russians. I could hear it in their accent, in their voices. Of course, Indians. And I know New York has always had this melting pot kind of thing. Like I know that. But now, even more so, it just seems like super, super a lot. Like a lot of non-New Yorkers, non-Americans are living in New York now and making it happen. And of course, you come to New York because of the whole make that money thing. That's all New York is about. New York is about how much money can one person make in as many hours as they can work. And you know, that lifestyle just doesn't seem very healthy to me. I mean, I'm sure there are aspects of health in it, and I'm sure there's aspects of what, my friend who lives there, she says she loves what she does. I really find that hard to believe. I really find that hard to believe that she loves what she does, because I guess it's just my mentality that if I have to go that far to do what I love, I don't know if I don't know if I love that. Not to mention the fact that she's an artist and she's working for like the 1%. And I don't think I would want to be in that position. But of course, that's just where I'm coming from. I don't necessarily want to work for the 1%, Like my girlfriend, another friend of mine said, Sky, you should get a job being a chef for somebody rich. And I said, not at all. I don't care to do that. I'd rather someone come here and cook for me. You know what I mean? So, it's just all my opinions and stuff like that. But I do suggest folks traveling to New York. And the definite highlight of my trip was going to the Wendy Williams show, because as much as, her show really doesn't mean that much to me as much people think it does. But it's fun. It's fun. It's interesting. It's you know, it's kind of like filler entertainment. And the show was hype. It was really, you got a lot for going to a free event. And if you guys ever want a tip on getting some free things to do in New York, go find all the shows that are taped in New York City, and you can be a free guest on their show. Rachel Ray has a show there. Wendy Williams, Meredith Vieira. There's a couple other shows you can check out and be like a guest. You could be in the audience, and I think that's really fun. But anyway, because I can barely breathe and I need to get this congestion out of me by Sunday, because I have a group coming, I'm going to sign off, and we will meet again on Monday, and we could come up with a list of the next week's conversation. But I definitely want to keep it light, keep it fun, keep it informative. And I know Van is busy in and out working, and he has a terrible connection, so maybe he'll get to hear it later and, chime in the next time. So, Claire, thank you for coming, as you always
Alright,
are.
thanks,
So
Sky.
welcome. And we will talk to you on the rebound. Have a great night, everyone. Peace.
Peace out, people. Tune in next time for Marinate.